Welcome to the Growth Guys Podcast, presented by KinderReeseCoaching.com. This is the #1 podcast for real estate agents who are serious about growing their business. Get the strategies and tactics to grow your business fast while building the lifestyle you dream of. Now, sit back, buckle up, and get ready, because we're about to get real. The Growth Guys Podcast starts right now.
Jumping into the next.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Growth Guys Podcast. It's Jeff Kiani here with my man John Kitchens, and here to talk a little growth today. What's going on, Kitchens?
What is happening? I'm excited to back on and really dive into another topic that we're pretty passionate about.
What are we going to be talking about today?
Man, we're going to talk a little optimization and
optimization. It sounds like a transformer, man. Optimization. It is a transformer.
It is a transformer. And it can be a transformer for your business if you understand it. And, real estate agents are notorious for, something works and they're jumping off to the other thing. And, or they get something that's working a little bit and then they jump over to the next shiny object. And, oh yeah, I remember when I used to send postcards, man, that worked. Yeah. Well, then why the hell did you stop doing it? And it's like, yeah.
Probably, yeah. I was listening to, it's funny, yesterday, somehow it came through my feed, man. I don't know how I found this thing, but it was an old replay of Kinder when he was on with Tim and Julie Harris on like a podcast that they had or something. It was in our Wistia, but it was from a while back. And he was like a guest on their deal. And they were talking about the shiny objects. And I remember Tim was talking about how, people like, say, for instance, prospecting. He was saying that most agents, they have no business being in marketing. Right now, this sounds crazy, but he's like, you have no business going around fiddling with pages and all this other stuff that's related to marketing because it's fun and cool. And that's kind of where society's at now. Most agents have no business doing that. And you're like, what? Some people might think that. And he's like, because the reality is what most agents need to be doing is that front end stuff like prospecting, right? And talking to people face to face. And then you get in the conversation where him and Kinder are just going back, talking about how important it is and really how easy it is to get your business up to a cruising altitude if you just do those things like call expireds and for sale by owners and canceled religiously and start to build that pillar of your business. And then what happens is that you have success.
Yeah.
You can't avoid, what do we like to say? You can't avoid the results.
Right.
You have success. And then for some reason, never fails. Soon as you prove that it works, well, now that that's done, let me move on and get over here and start messing with some marketing.
Stuff that takes time, right? And that's where most agents let go of the bread and butter, let go of what accelerates your business. And you had mentioned if you will develop that skill set and learn how to be proactive and prospect, you can survive any downturn. You can survive any type of market.
Because you can create business out of thin air.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can create business out of thin air when there's no referrals coming in, or the lead flow dries up, or the competition is getting the market share. If you can't create business out of thin air, then you're screwed. Right? Or if you can't adapt, if you're in the REO business and that niche dries up and those opportunities aren't there, you need to go create opportunities somewhere else without those connections and stuff. And, the easiest way, man, is getting in front of somebody or talking to somebody on the phone.
Yeah, it really is. And even to that, particular, hook in the water, if you will, of, expires or for sale by owners, even back to, the point that we're wanting to drive home with this episode is even if you're having success with expireds, even having success with for sale by owners, even having success with open houses, even having success with converting internet inquiries, from, whatever lead gen platforms or whatever it is you're doing, I can promise you that you're still leaving some meat on the bone. You are not squeezing all of the juice out of that opportunity. And that's the point, right? Optimize what's working and identify and get everything out of it that you can before you start investing in other opportunities. And part of that is building it into a system and a process that it continues to run without, when you move on to the next thing, it stops working, right? So like where most people fail, like I had mentioned, is that, crushing it with some direct mail pieces and you take your eye off of it because you didn't have a system or process in place for that to keep running, right? And what is Jim Collins talks about, being a clock builder versus a time teller, right? Building the machine, building the process, building the systems and processes to where that is going to keep running instead of, you just constantly looking at the clock. So that's the kind of the mindset you want to get. And you want to get like, man, shit, how can I squeeze all of the juice? And let's just talk expireds. Jeff, how can we, check all the boxes and squeeze all of the juice? So I'll give you an example. So one way, and most of the way that most people are, is that they're scouring through, finding the expireds and making the phone call. That's it. They just make the phone call. And some agents just make the phone call on the first day. So did we make a phone call on the second day? Did we get a hold of them? Did we make, how many attempts did we make and have a conversation or get to a conversation? Did we send them a text message? Did we send them did we leave them a voicemail? Did we send them an email? Right? Did we do that multiple times? Great. What did we mail them? Right? Did we have a conversation? Did we send a handwritten thank you letter? Did we schedule a follow-up? Are we utilizing, I think technology is kind of a given these days. I think, all the tools, RedX has a great tool. Mojo has a great tool. Vulcan 7 has a great tool. Like there's a lot of great tools. So, it just comes down to, the effort, the consistency, and, are we layering in all of these different elements to optimize and squeeze all of the juice out of the expired opportunity?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of tools, but none of them are, none of them are autopilot. I mean, I can go out to my garage and there's a bunch of tools right now, but I'm the one that has to use it, consistently to get those things to work. So I think that that's one of the key things. You mentioned the other, being able for a process or the activities that make the biggest impact on your business, looking for a way to ensure that those can be executed at a high level without you being involved. That's really what we're talking about, because it's, you want to have a wheel that doesn't need the hamster. Right. Otherwise you're the hamster on the wheel and you're the hamster wheel. And if you're sick one day and you can't get on that wheel, then that wheel doesn't turn. And what we're trying to do is find a way. So going back to what we said about marketing and how it's not a good place for your attention, in the example we used, doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be done at some point, but somebody else could handle that because you're probably going to make the biggest impact by having the conversations face to face with the clientele. Once there's, core capital and other things that have been met, that it makes sense to start spending your own money doing that. But when it comes to the expireds and stuff like that, I mean, you named it. It's an example of, I have RedX, Kitchens has RedX.
Yep.
He hears about me getting a whole bunch of business on expireds. He says expireds suck and don't work for him. We both have access to the same stuff. So what's the difference? I'm just optimizing it better. I'm sending out a video. I'm sending out a text messages. I'm sending out the letter. Inviting them to like me on Facebook. I'm sending them an email. I'm inviting them to the next event that we're having in the community. I'm sending them a message on Facebook Messenger. I mean, there's 7, 8 different channels that I'm using versus what likely in most offices is one. And that's not only one channel, but one phone call.
Yeah.
Right. I can optimize that by a level of 10 by making 9 more phone calls.
Right.
Or find out another way I could optimize it is take a look at what time we're calling these leads. And if we find that it's 11 a.m. when we're finally on the phone calling expireds, I can quickly optimize that effort for you. Get on the phone at 8 a.m. instead. So instead of going, we're calling expireds every day at 11 a.m., not getting what we want. So let's go look for another lead source. Let's see if LandVoice is better. Let's see if Vulcan 7 is better. Let's go on to the next shiny thing. Instead of, look, if I want my car to go faster, I don't necessarily have to go buy a new car. There's a supercharger I could put in it. I don't have to go get a new car. Plus, I get the return of all the time that's already been invested in that activity. You know what I mean? So if you're making the calls at 11 a.m., good news is you're making the calls. Right. You're having the conversations.
But is that the best use? But is that the best action? Is that the best use? Is that the most effective use of that resource, of that situation?
Right. And so, my point to finish that off is that, you're making the calls, you're getting and improving your skill set because you're having the conversation, using the scripts and everything. So that's good. Now you can not only optimize, but my point is, because you're doing that and you go, oh man, if I just moved it to 8 o'clock, we could get a lot better results. I also get the compounding interest of, I was spending all the time making the calls and saying the stuff. I was just doing it at the wrong time. So good news is I don't have to start from the beginning, having not said the stuff and getting used to making the calls. So, you put in all the effort making calls, you put in the effort for 3 months doing direct mail, and you build up this wave of momentum. But as soon as you stop doing it, you lose all that return and equity that you built. So by optimizing something, not only do I improve it, but I improve it that much more because I already have equity in it. I bought in at an IPO price. I got special IPO pricing. You know what I'm saying? Right.
And it's, evaluating and looking under the hood of so many real estate agents' business over the years. It's that evaluation to take a step back and like, man, what's working really, really well. And there have been very, very few agents that have really reaped every ounce of reward from whatever is working well in their business. I mean, even a majority of agents over a period of time, their business is built on, people that know them, like them, love them, trust them. And it's one of the most underappreciated, underutilized, under-optimized revenue stream that they have in their business, right? It's just happening organically and they don't know why, and they're not doing anything to do more of it. And it's more so being intentional with those activities. And I think one of the things, and you had said, how do you know if you're doing enough? And it's like, well, you better start paying attention and measuring it. Right? It's like, it's no different in staying on the expired. Well, having the awareness you're making the calls at 11, well, let's shift it to 8 and maybe get an evening session in there, change it up a little bit and measure how many conversations we're having, right? How many dials are you making? How many conversations are you having? How many text messages did you send out? How many voicemails did you leave? How many, getting down and making sure that we're measuring our efforts and our actions and our activities around these particular sources are critical.
Yeah. And you got to tune in, you know what I mean? Like a radio dial, you got to tune in, man. There's a recipe, as you were mentioning, here's what, and you can give me your thoughts on this, but I think that there are a lot of agents that we talk to that are trying to do way too many things.
Yes.
Way too many things, like 20 different things to drive their business. And then when you talk to the ones that really have a solid foundation and are crushing it and have a system where they can take off for a month or whatever, they have like 5 things that they're doing.
Yep.
And it's like, they're not worried about all that new, all the things that you could be doing. What they've done is they've identified the things that make the biggest impact, and that's all that they do. And usually they're really simple. They're not crazy. They're not even cutting edge. You know what I mean? They're time-tested, simple principles, and they just nail those, and they continue to look and see how to improve those. Every morning, it's not about what new are we going to do. It's, since we're already doing what we need to do, let's talk about how we can get better results from it. And it's not new, it's improve. The focus isn't new, it's improve. And that's the recipe. It's like we got here, last Christmas or so, we got one of these pizza stones, and we have a family member that makes all these pizzas, and they get really into it. They have pizza night, and they homemade with their own dough and everything, and they've really dialed it in. So they gave us a recipe, and we followed it, and the crust is always the, tough thing.
Right.
And so like the first time we did it wasn't so great. Second time we did it, it was great. But, thinking about that, there's a recipe there, but it still takes time to perfect it. And I think we've all, like, you cook something once and you're like, well, next time I'm going to add a little bit of this. Next time, you don't say next time I'm going to cook sushi. Right? I'm still going to do the pizza next time. Yeah. I'm just going to look for a way to improve it. And unfortunately, sometimes, right, what we see in real estate is, instead of just trying to cook the pizza better the second time, we go, screw the pizza, man. I'm gonna go get a burger.
Absolutely.
And so, and so instead of, let's say that you're not hitting your goal with the activities that you are doing, instead of saying, hey, can we tune in a little bit better and get better results out of those activities, instead of saying that, you're going, let's go find something else that we can do instead. And a lot of times that's not the right choice. It's not something else. It's just improving what you're doing.
Yeah, I'll give you guys a little more context. So when we transitioned away from, we went independent from Coldwell Banker, we, laid out the, really the transformation guide, the three key steps that anybody has to make when they make a move or make a transition. And in there, we identified what were the key pillars that the business is built on. And for us, it was three. We had three key pillars that we focused on within our organization, and we focused on how can we optimize just these three things. And the three things were our guaranteed sale program. So how can we make sure that we're optimizing the guaranteed sale program? Where is it at? How are we communicating it? What are all the ways to get that message out? That included prospecting, that included, any brand consistency on all of our marketing outlets, from postcards to everything online, to our email signatures, to the billboards, to the radio message, to everything that we did was guaranteed sale. So that was number one. Number two was our online lead gen platform. And I think at the time we had Boomtown transitioning into Commissions Inc., but really optimizing those platforms. Are we doing the best practices, right? Speed of response, number of calls, rotate, whatever it was, right? We were constantly focused on making that the best it possibly could be. And then our third pillar was our past clients, which was our Raven Fan program. And we were constantly iterating and adding to that, and capturing testimonials, rewarding behavior for referrals. It's just like, acknowledging, inviting, getting face-to-face. But those were the three things, right? So it's like you had just mentioned, less is more. And for us, those were the three things. And that's what we focused on, optimizing those three things. That was it. And now we did a bunch of different activities around that. And we were constantly iterating and innovating, right? Innovation is just adding more value. So we were constantly trying to add as much value to those three pillars as we could. That was our focus. It's like what you said, it's so powerful. If it did not, and that goes back to like Jim Collins talks about the hedgehog. It's like, what are you the best in the world at? What do you enjoy doing? And what drives your economic engine? And for us, it was all three of those things, right? it moved everything that we did in the business. And the more that we did the guaranteed sell, the more that we focused on online lead gen conversion, and the more that we focused on loving and acknowledging our past clients, the flywheel moved, right? That was the driver. So I love that you brought that up, made me trigger that thought. But less is more. We had those 3 pillars, and we just focused on obsessively focusing on making those the best that they could be.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up, because I had written down, so an exercise, and we can kind of do this. You talk through it, and we can unpack that a little bit about how you guys figured out what those 3 are, so we can provide maybe an exercise that people listening can go through to figure it out. But what I had written down really was to identify what those 3 things are that make the biggest impact, and then search for every way that you could possibly improve those things. And so, get a piece of paper out and write down what those things are. And then I think you go a step further is when you sit down and you identify on a piece of paper, because getting it in front of you where you can see it is important. You can't just sit there and mull it over a cup of coffee. You got to get it out in front of you. And once you identify those 3 things, then you can pull out another piece of paper and start making an activities list on all the activities that would drive towards the goal for that thing out of the 3. But how did you guys come up with what those were, Kitchens?
It was came back to, the unique selling proposition, that USP for us, and we really settled in, and that's what we've seen over the years. There's nothing in the real estate space that makes the phone ring more than, your home sold guaranteed or we'll buy it. There's a couple things in the wording there that we tested and we found out, and this goes back to just trying to optimize it. And, we've ran it every which way you could. We didn't run it. This is the funniest thing ever. It wasn't funny at the time, but we switched up all the billboards in town to kind of a little catchphrase, something guaranteed results, something that we had, whatever. It was just like, and we were like, man, it's been awful quiet. Why hasn't the phone been ringing? And we let that run, man, for 7-8 months. And we're like, something's got to change, man. Let's strip them down. Boom, put the guaranteed sell back up. Your home sold in 59 days guaranteed or we'll buy it. The phone started ringing immediately, like that week that they went back up. And it triggers the motivational client, the motivated seller. And it's the reason they call you. It's not always the reason they do business with you. And that's what people have to understand. And a lot of people, there's a little moral, they don't internally, they have some conflict with it. A lot of agents do that we talked to over the years, talking about the guaranteed sell. And it's the internal dialogue that's just not true. And if you come from a place of the strategy of preeminence, right? One of our earlier podcasts, we talked about that. But if you come from that place that you really, truly in your core know that you can help them no matter what their situation is, if you really, really believe that you've got the resources and the tools and the knowledge and the expertise to be able to help them, then like that's just a hook to get them to call you to where you can diagnose what their situation is, and then you can help them. Maybe it is that you buy their home and you help them, and it's like, well, I'm not able in a situation to go do that. Well, we weren't either in the beginning, but we found an investor that we knew their criteria, that they were willing to step in and be a part of that. So it's not what does Tony Robbins say is that it's not a lack of, it's not a lack of knowledge. It's just more that you're not being resourceful enough to overcome any of the particular roadblocks or situations or challenges that you believe that are in your way. It's just not true. And so that's where we went with the guaranteed sell. The online lead gen, it was just something, when you get into a team dynamic and one of your value propositions within the team structure, it has to be providing leads and providing opportunities. Or if you don't have that as one of your value adds to team members, then you got to adjust the compensation structure accordingly. And in the team dynamic and the team model, and this is a completely different conversation, it doesn't work. It makes it real hard to work on higher split structure if you're not providing some type of opportunity. So we've always been cutting edge. We were the first 100 agents in the country to be on Tiger Leads, working with Howard and giving the feedback and helping build out Tiger Leads. And then when he sold Tiger, we kept Tiger forever. We just didn't really drive traffic or anything to it. And then we, transitioned, we went with Boomtown. And then that's when Commissions Inc. came online. And obviously, all the work that we did with Dwayne and helping build Commissions Inc. And so really, I think that was the thing, right? Just always being cutting edge with it, and then just constantly iterating on what are best practices, and just having that as one of the foundational pieces with your database, your website, your lead gen platform. And then, man, the biggest source of your business absolutely should be the people that know you, like you, love you, trust you. I mean, if the magic number is if you're 50% or more of your business and it's growing is from people that know you, like you, love you, trust you, you're going to be more profitable than not. And so putting the mixture of personal relevance and professional relevance in place in a systematic way to communicate and add value back to your people, and not really always begging and asking for referrals. There's, 7L with Michael Mayer is an amazing. If you're wanting to up your past client game, there's three key reads that I would recommend. One, we built our foundation on Hug Your Customer book by I'm picturing the guy's face right now. I know there's copies floating around everywhere, but right here. The paper's even off of it. It got so ripped out. But Jack Mitchell's book, Hug Your Customer. You have to, if you want to optimize what you're doing, the philosophy in this book is foundational, and it's you have to know your people. You have to know. There's just key things that you have to know about them from a personal standpoint to stay personally relevant to to really deepen the relationship. So that's one, that's a must read for your past client, raving fan type of structure. The other would be Michael Mayer's 7L communication, where he talks about, just the right way to go about, adding value and being able to receive referrals in return. I know there's a copy of that book floated around the office there's books everywhere with it. Right. In fact, Michael was a part of the project with Jay and Reese on the Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents. So he contributed to that book as well. And then the other one is Giftology. And it's the right way to go about acknowledging and utilizing surprise and delight, shock and awe in there. If you just follow the practices of those three books, like, you will have a world-class past client, raving fan type of communication and structure. So that's the optimization, man. It's just like, how do you continue to iterate and add as much value to that particular segment of your business? And it's the most profitable. It's the most profitable part of your business and that comes back to, and this is what Jack talks about, is lifetime value, right? You have to build your business on lifetime value. I'll never forget the very first training seminar that I went to with Kinder. This was in January of 2005. For those of you that have been in the game long enough and know some of the trainers around the time. And it was the very first time this program had ever started. And there was this guy at the front of the room, and he reminded me of a little banty rooster, right? He was just kind of walking and talking, and I'll never forget this. And he says, "Why would you want to worry about people that you've already done business with us when it's so much cheaper to go get a new client?" And I was kind of sitting back. I was like, that don't seem right. That don't seem right. I looked at Kinder and I was like, "You buying that?" And we joked more about it over the years, and like, "Hell no, I ain't buying that." And I think I told you the other day, I was listening to a podcast with Perry Belcher, and Perry's a character in itself. And he was ranting about, he said, "Man," he goes, "I honestly believe it's the hardest time in history to acquire a new client." He said, "But I believe it's the easiest time in history to get them to do business with you second, third, fourth, and fifth time." And I agree 100%. And that's why, man, you got to take that LTV, that lifetime value business model, that philosophy, and pour into that. So here's what I would say, because I know most of the agents that we have the opportunity to work with over the years and currently and moving into the future, majority of their business comes from people that know them, like them, love them, trust them. If I was to say, "Jeff, shit, man, where should I start?" I would say, let's optimize the hell out of the people that already like you, love you, trust you. In addition to making sure you're doing the things every day to be consistent, the outbound muscle, prospecting, communication. You've got to be proactive with new business, but let's optimize the heck out of what you're already doing to the people that already love you.
Yeah. And my belief is that, like, let's say your outbound muscle that you were talking about there, it's my belief and my experience tells me that the more that I do those things, the better I perform doing everything. And so even if I'm working to optimize and communicate and reach out to and engage with my past clients, I can do that more effectively, and I can be a better influencer doing that if I'm doing the outbound stuff and everything else.
Why is that? Yeah, unpack that a little bit, because I mean, I agree with you, but I want to give some context to that.
Well, first, I mean, just making outbound stuff, you're constantly talking about business, and you're repeating your value statements all the time, and you're building the habit of asking for business, articulating the value, asking questions, qualifying who's a prospect, who's not. It's like you're running everything through this thing. And so once you're like so used to doing that you get out of your own way, when you're talking to people maybe that you already have a relationship with, you're able to articulate that value even better. And you're just, you know, it's just, you know, no matter who you're talking to, if I'm going to a networking event or whatever, you know, it's going to serve me there. And so I think usually the things that you don't want to do, or the things that make the biggest impact in your business, either way, sometimes they're both, the things that make the biggest impact are the things you don't want to do. But the more time that you spend doing those things, the better you do everything else. And so it's not just prospecting. If it's the guaranteed sales program, then if we have a meeting every day where we just talk about the guaranteed sales program and we verbalize what the value statement is, how we transition into discussing it, how we explain it, how we say, based on that guaranteed sale program, can we move forward? Like, the more we do that on a day-to-day basis, then the better we're going to get at that. And then the better I'll be at prospecting, because I'll be so good at dropping that in. The better I'll be at delivering my marketing message on Facebook or whatever, because we spend so much time living in that world of repeating it and everything. So, you know, it's you can't, like, I could see where I say, all right, I'm just going to work my past database. Cool. But you don't have any practice in delivering your message. You don't have any practice at handling an objection. You don't really have any practice at qualifying. By the way, when you're communicating with people that you already know, like, and trust, there is a risk that you treat them differently. And I mean differently from the sense of they still should go through the same process, and they should be asked the same questions, and you should still trial close, and you should still look for commitments, and you should still do a seller's counseling interview. All these other things, you know, you can have a different tone to the conversation. But, you know, if I'm not used to doing all that stuff, then I can easily waste that time communicating with my database also. So I think, you know, it's like, you know, that they are the easiest. I'm gonna put it in a weird way. They're like a victim. So they're like the easiest victim, right? But you got to sharpen your sword still,
right?
You know what I mean? They might be the easiest victim to get at, but you still got to have a sword that's sharp enough. And the way you get that sword sharp is by doing those things like the role plays and making the prospecting calls, putting yourself in the real world situations. And then you build the habits where when I get my buddy Kitchens on the phone, I didn't even realize that I just treated him the same way I do everybody else. You know, I said, let me ask a few questions, Kitchens, and how much is left on the mortgage? When's the last time that you did any remodeling or any improvements to the home? Hey, by the way, you meeting with any other agents? Do me a favor. I know we know each other and you wouldn't do it, but don't make any decisions until we have a chance to meet, all right? And just so I'm on the same page with you, if everything sounds good when I come out and meet with you, are you willing to list your home with me on Friday? You know, now some people would think that because he's my friend, I'm not going to go through all that.
You have to.
And if I have enough practice that that's just my routine, I wouldn't even think twice about it. I would have just did it naturally, and he wouldn't think twice about it because I don't sound awkward doing it, because it's just like every other day. I used to say, like, when we used to be in the money raising business, you know, you have to act like, man, I pick up checks all day long, dude. It's no big deal. Right? $100,000, $200,000, no big deal. I got another one to pick up, you know, no big deal. And then you get somebody on the phone who's like, so if you just grab the paperwork, and do you have your checkbook ready? Dude, you sound like you never done this before. Yeah. You're going to scare the hell out of that person. And if that was my buddy from my database or a past client that I had done business with a year ago, it don't matter if I get on there and I stutter and I'm not clear about my message and I can't ask what I want. What's the purpose of this call? Don't be scared to acknowledge there's a purpose for the call, right? And by the way, that's always a good way to start the call. The reason I'm calling you. Yeah,
absolutely.
But, you know, we always get on to talking about calls, man. And I always try to stray away from that because you know, that's, I guess, how, you know, that really is how important it is. And it doesn't have to be calls. If you're going to an event every week, cool. You're in front of a lot of people, but make sure you're saying the right thing. You're asking the right questions, all those kind of things. So it's not about just the calls, you know, but you got to optimize your message.
Yes, sir.
Also, your guaranteed sales program, you optimized it so that it became easy to understand. We did a podcast episode a while back about branding. It'd be a good one to go back and listen to, you know, and your brand, or in your case, the value of the guaranteed sales program needs to be easily understood, and people need to really be able to see how it could affect them. And you need to optimize it, mess around with the words, mess around with how we're positioning the message and what channels we're putting it on. Maybe there's a better billboard on a different side of town, or right.
Man, you nailed it, right? Did I optimize? Am I on the drive side, or am I on the opposite side of the road, right? What is, it's just.
Who's my audience? If I'm running Facebook ads, instead of trying to find a new ad and spending a whole bunch of time scouring the internet for a new image, or, you know, sitting on the couch trying to think what new clever tagline you can come up with, maybe you just need to look at your audience. Maybe you need to optimize that. You know, if you're making dials and you're not getting results, maybe we need to optimize the calling time. We need to optimize the system and the process we follow when we're reaching out. How many times are we touching them? All that kind of stuff.
I love it. Good stuff, man. Really good. Power of optimization, squeezing all the juice out of what you have, what's working before you're looking to implement. And I think too, you know, like I said, those three key things, that's how decisions get made, right? You make decisions based upon what's going to drive what you're good at, you know, what you're passionate about, what drives the economic engine, and you make your decisions through that filter. And that has to be key. If not, you're squirreling all over the place.
Yeah, I think takeaways there is you don't have to do a lot. You know, find those three things that make the biggest impact. and then spend a bunch of time trying to figure out how you can improve the results that you get from doing those things. Another great episode, man.
Yeah, buddy. I love it. And, if you guys tuning in, want to kind of dive into a little process of how to grow and scale your business, man, there's got a pretty dang good video over at kinderreesecoaching.com. You guys need to go check out and, go through that and set up a clarity call. We'd love to have the opportunity to talk with you. And, if you take nothing away from the clarity call, you're probably going to figure out something that you need to optimize. And it's worth that alone is worth your time. So head over to Kinder Reese Coaching, check it out, and let's set up a call to talk.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time on the next episode of the Growth Guys podcast.
See ya.
To find out how to build a 7-figure real estate business in 3 years or less, go to kinderreesecoaching.com. You've been listening to the Growth Guys podcast. If you want us to help you grow your real estate business, go to kinderreesecoaching.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the Growth Guys podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast fix to get new, fresh weekly episodes. Catch you next time on the Growth Guys podcast.